We've ran the poll. We've crunched the numbers. Yellow wins. Yellow wins what, you may ask? Well, I did a little poll, a democratic referendum, if you will, on what shall we spin during Tour de Fleece. And the winner was yellow, although I might have cheated a little bit and counted the comments that said start with yellow, but do the other one as well, also in camp yellow. I might have been biased, because yellow is one of my favorite colors. Anyway, what is this bag of yellow? These are all dyeing experiment results. I often just use small bits of fluff to experiment with a new natural dye stuff. And then, well, I just happen to have all small bits of fluff. And these are all yellow. And I think because we have this entire bag of yellow fluffs, this gives us the best, the truest opportunity to start experimenting with some color management techniques. Maybe first let's sort it kind of a little bit into color groups. So over here I have the really light yellows, almost beige tones or maybe almost white. Then we have medium yellow, very bright yellow, like almost orange. Oh, here's a stray one. You go over here. Then we have like golden tones and browns. Like this isn't yellow anymore, but it's also very pretty, so we're just going to go in there. And then we have this. This is blue tassel dyed with yellow, so it's almost green. Let's talk possibilities. For honestly, the possibilities are endless. One possibility that I do not want to do is to separate them out in each of the different color groups and make bats according to their color group and then spin each one separately. That is, of course, a valid way of managing your colors. That is an idea if it is inspiration that you want. If you, for example, really love the look of clean barber poled yarn, go for that. 100% spin each color as a different singles. However, there are just some groups like this light yellow over here that's much smaller than others of my color groups, and I also just have 5 different groups, which would make it a little bit difficult just logistic wise when I'm spinning it. So not going for that route, but there are a few different ones that I want to explore today. First one being blend it so thoroughly it looks uniform. And with blended, I actually just mean card it. There are down breeds in there, there is Suffolk, Hampshire down. This wool is just screaming at me, carding, carding, carding. It's the only possibility. I don't make the rules, but that is what the wool is saying to me, that this needs to be carded. So, first bat that we will make, and possibly also the first bat that we will spin during Tour de Fleece, is one where all of the colors are represented, but you cannot see it. So we're just taking a little bit of each color first. I mostly just fluff it out with my hands, making it easier on my Drumcarder. Also, like just taking really small bits, you don't want to overload it. And go slow. So this would be our bed if we just went for one pass. All of the colors just flecked on there, which also gives nice results if you have a chaotic bed like this. For example, this is a yarn that I spun with such a chaotic bed. I do think, however, that was the second pass, just to have it a little bit more blended, but then I plied it with a chain ply to keep all the, chunks of color that were in that bed together. That's how that can look like. But let's continue carding this bed like 3, 4, maybe 5 times until we really get that uniform blended look. This is the third pass on our Drumcarder, and this is where I would stop if I want the yarn with a heathered look. It looks almost uniform, but it isn't. There are still clear streaks. Like over here is a light streak, here is a darker one. You would get a nice heathered yarn from this. I think I want to take it 1, maybe 2 passes on the Drumcarder further, just to see how well blended we can get this. Because you saw the colors when they first went into this were quite different, and already it is just looking like a magnificent ochre bed. This is what I would call a heathered yarn. Now maybe this is a bad example because it's black. I don't know how well it shows up on camera. But there's all kinds of different browns in here, just like a field of heather. So I just did 5 passes on my Drumcarder. However, I think I'm right now in diminished returns territory. We are also still in heathered territory, but I feel like this is about as blended as I can get it without standing here for another 3 hours just carding and carding away. I am going to use my pretty little diz that I have over here and pull some roving off my Drumcarder. So if you blend all of this into oblivion, you get this. That's one thing you could do, is just randomly blend it. Or to talk more technically, this was blended in layers. Every horizontal layer on the Drumcarder was a different color, and then we kept repeating that. Now, you can also make an interesting color management, blend, bat, whatever, by layering them in stripes. With which I mean that right over here, we will, for example, use the darker, the browns, here the brights, and here the lights. Yeah, let's try that one. This is another 3 passes, and this time, as I've said, all the browns and dark ones are concentrated here. Here are the brights and the lights. Of course, with the 3 passes, it has transformed into a lovely gradient going from dark and brown to almost white. I'm also going to pull a little roving with my disc. I don't know, I'm in the mood for roving instead of bats right now. And this is another point where you can make very interesting color management decisions. For this first one, I'm going to try and pull a perfect gradient, and I think I will then do the same thing once again, so card from dark to light, but then go crisscross over it, and then I'll compare both. But first, let's try and pull a perfect gradient. Maybe it's easier if the bat's off the Drumcarder. Yeah, let's just first take it off. We're back at this stage. So 3 passes of this gradient striped bat. Now this time I'm not going to pull a gradient or not one continuous gradient. I'm going to go wee, wee, wee and have small gradients that follow each other. So currently we have one nearly fully blended piece of roving, one long full gradient, and then one with smaller gradients. And I must be completely honest with you, I'm starting to get out of ideas on how we can still hack our Drumcarder into a blending board to make like creative color management choices. But I also still have quite a lot of wool left. I know a lot of you said that this was not enough wool for me to spin during Tour de Fleece, and you are probably correct, but I have already carded like 3 big humps. I didn't think it would last me this long. You know, I call this one layered blending, but what if we actually do layered blending? Like this was random pieces, but let's now do like full layer and go lighter and lighter with each subsequent layer and then blend that. See if there is any difference between just random throwing stuff on your Drumcarder and then blending it, or doing it more precise and thought out. I do plan during Tour de Fleece to just mix and match these humps of fiber. Like I might just grab this one for my first spin and then you just, do the gradient for the second ball pin and then apply it all together. This is really just experimenting for me, and I really just love experimenting with all different kinds of fibers and colors, and yeah, I'm getting so much energy from this. Just playing around with colors and all the possibilities that my Drumcarder has to offer. I haven't introduced you to my Drumcarder in this video yet. Well, I do this like every other video that I card or something, and then the ones where I don't, there will be comments. What is your Drumcarder? This is the Woolmakers Giant. Woolmakers is like the off-name brand of Fluet. They're made in the Netherlands. I think that I have the 46 times per inch version. It could also be the 72. I'm not sure. I knew that when I bought it like 4 years ago, I wanted one to primarily work with medium to coarse wool, because that's just the kind of fiber that I have around here. So yeah, that's what I bought, you know, the one that does the medium stuff. Do I specifically recommend this Drumcarder? Well, it works. Are there better Drumcarders on the market? For sure. You cannot switch out the drums. You cannot even zhuzh them closer to each other, because my tines actually touch and they shouldn't, which means that I already have some tines that are a little bit out of alignment after 4 years of use. But it works. It was a budget carder. I'm quite happy with it, but that's just my 2 cents on it, so that you know, because there will be questions. Anyway, let's first make a layer of this blue tassel that was dyed yellow. First pass, which is just a yellow sandwich with the darkest color here and the lightest color over here. I mean, this is a bat that I could also just spin as is, and I think that would be really interesting. However, I don't want to right now. Maybe I'll make a second one. I'm going to also go with 3 passes of this, and you will like, well, and I will like, you know, sandwich the layers even more when I do that. Yeah, that's the theory at least. Let's see what it becomes. So this is the hump where the layered blend is carded 3 times. This will result in a heathered yarn, as I've said before. Now, this reminded me of that commercial kind of roving with the vertical stripes, and I thought, well, what if I do this but with only 1 pass? And that's this one. It is remarkably similar to those commercial rovings, with the exception, of course, that my colors are all really close to one another and maybe it's a lot more subtle. But yeah, I think those vertically striped roving that you find online is a layered blend with but only 1 pass, or at least with the machines that make them not like this. You do see the difference, right? I don't know, I feel like my camera is a little bit desaturated, because on the viewfinder these are so low in contrast, while there actually is a lot more contrast in them when I'm looking at them in real life. Especially the bright yellow is a lot more bright yellow than I can see in the viewfinder. I hope it comes better off on screen. Anyway, then I made another striped blend, but this time instead of having blended stripes, so I went with the darks, the brights and the lights, I really went just 1 single color per stripe, so that the stripe would be much shorter, thinner, and then also went with the shorter version of the gradient. I think this is also a very interesting prep, a very interesting color management choice. And what I'm just doing now is throwing everything that is left over in a random way, so a random layered way on the Drumcarder, and I will see how many passes I do, how many I want. And then, even though I said I didn't want to do the unicolored bats because that would be 5 and that would logistically not make a lot of sense, I will ironically end up with 7 humps of fiber. Yes, well, that's when you don't measure or weigh anything and then you shoot yourself in the foot. I think I will just have to split up one of the humps while spinning. They're also not equal in size, so maybe it'll all be all right in the end when we start Tour de Fleece. There we have it. My 7 humps of wool for Tour de Fleece, with all the same fiber, all the same colors, but just every time a different color management choice or technique. Yeah, I think this is going to be so interesting. And maybe, you know, I just said 7 is logistically not as easy, but what if I just divide each of the humps in 2, then it's 14, that's an even number. Like, I can work with that, and maybe I can like pair them chaotically and have 7 different skeins, but they will all fit together because they're all in the same color range with the same color choices made. So these 2 are actually the same technique. This is the layered 3 passes and then, you know, the roving. But this one was the leftovers, so there wasn't as much of each color left. This has each color in it equally, so here is a lot more yellow. This one is the one with the 5 passes, so the most uniform one. And then this one is only 1 pass, so clear vertical stripes in there. This is the full gradient. This is like a middle gradient, I'd say, because this one is in the smaller gradient because each section is shorter and also the colors are more defined in this one. So yeah. Actually, there's 2 main groups of techniques here. So layered, striped, and then however you want to, however many passes you want to, and how you want to pull it off the Drumcarder. Of course, I could also have kept some as bats, and then they would also look completely different, and then again spin completely different. There are so many possibilities with just like limited colors. The possibilities are endless. I hope I've shown you some things that you might not have thought about yourself, but on the other hand, I am also willing to bet that there are people a lot more experienced with these color management techniques than I am, and that they will have even more ideas left behind in the comments. Right. I am super happy with my 7 humps of all different color choices, but all happy yellow, and I look forward to spinning them next month. Yeah, it's going to be such crazy but also consistently looking yarns. Speaking of Tour de Fleece, if you still have some questions that you want me to answer during Tour de Fleece, and they don't have to be like spinning technical questions or anything, they can be about anything you think of, you can also put them down in the comments. That would help me, you know, talk for 4 weeks straight, have some topics, have some ideas of what I should talk about. And if you're watching this video not in the context of Tour de Fleece, happy spinning to you as well. And if you like these kind of fiber shenanigans, then maybe you could like, comment or subscribe. But of course, that is all up to you. And as for me, I will see you in the next video. But maybe you could look at some more spinning shenanigans. Bye!